This video will not be around how to build motivation or mental resilience for the purpose of a job interview, but rather a more down-to-earth, business-like approach on how to regard these professional encounters, right? And the first thing I like to talk about here is that is it worth your time to attend the job interview that you're preparing for? Because in my experience, a vast number of candidates know, maybe a little bit on the subconscious side, that they have no chance going into a job interviews. And this could be for various reasons. Either you're not technically skilled, either you cannot prepare the job interview. But regardless of the reason, if you know you have no chance to pass a job interview, then, cancel it or postpone it if at all possible. Because this is a major reason why people would feel like, hey, but I'm going to try it anyway. And then if I fail, then so be it. Well, it's not as easy as that, because it will get you demoralized and demoralized on the long term. More on this later in the video. Okay. The second thing I like to talk about here is that passing a job interview with a high-performing company in particular is the exception, not the norm. So this is how you should regard this business. Okay, so if you happen to fail a job interview, at least fail that interview well. Okay, what do I mean by failing a job interview well? Well, for instance, in a job interview, don't just answer the question, robotically, but try to use your listening skills to maybe understand why a question gets asked. You see, because the moment you have a broader picture on how the interview goes, that's when you also understand what they're actually looking from you, okay? And if you do have an idea on what they're actually looking from you as a result of a job interview, then chances are you will also likely know why you failed that job interview, because there's nothing more frustrating than failing a job interview and having absolutely no clue as to why. Like, I answered all of their questions, I did my best to answer everything to the best of my knowledge, but I still failed. Well, you didn't have listening skills. You had no idea why they asked the question, or even more importantly, why they asked a follow-up or a challenge question for that. Okay, so listening skills. Second thing I like to talk about here, still on the listening skills, don't just focus around yourself when answering a question. Also focus on your interviewer. Look at them. Make eye contact with the interviewer. They're human beings, and they can and they often will give you clues as to how your performance evolves. Okay, to give an example, during my coaching sessions, I once had a candidate who booked a coaching session with me on the reason that then I cannot pass screening rounds with a proper CV. Okay, and then I said, okay, let's role play some random interview question. And what they did was they did a monologue of over 5 minutes, into which they communicated everything they wanted to communicate in the language they wanted to communicate. I understood absolutely nothing from what they said, and said, then what do you think? Well, I didn't understand a thing of what you said, and if you had only looked at me during the conversation, I could have told you, hey, I have no idea what you're talking about here. So this would have happened also during the job interview. But the difference was their interviewer preferred to let the time goes by, because, they had plenty of other candidates and time was running out in their favor. Recruiters don't prefer to spend all that much effort in getting the candidate back on track. If they're so early in the process, they don't have listening skills, they're not interested. Okay? Or another type of candidate who I coach is the one-off candidate. They basically book one coaching sessions, we do a role play. Their answers are terrible. They realize their answers are terrible, but say something unless, yeah, then okay, I understand, but these behavior questions don't matter as much anyway. So you see, it's a lack of understanding, lack of listening, lack of commercialism, if you want. You don't understand how this business actually works. It does work on impressions at times, because it's as much as you can do sometimes in 1 hour at best. right? So candidates who also say they don't care, well, that's something, to to try to shield yourself from your ultimate failure, right? Everyone should care about their job interview, because what happens after is strictly depending on how much you cared about it in the first place. Okay, and the third thing I'd like to talk about here is that everyone, without exception, is frustrated after not passing a job interview. The difference is that a well-qualified or a strong candidate will feel frustrated for, I don't know, 1 hour, let's say 1 day at most, but then they will focus on what they learned, how they could grow for their next job interview. The vast majority of candidates, when they fail a job interview, they don't know why they failed it sometimes, but most of the time they'll start, blame it on various stuff. They are unlucky, or life is not, life is unfair. Okay, so if you fail a job interview, then try to take some lessons from there. That's why behavior interview questions around failure are very hard to answer, because nobody likes looking at failures as learning opportunities. Okay, same goes with job interviews. And last, I'd like to add a quick comment here, because some of you might say, okay, Dan, but it's very easy for you to say because you don't have to go to these job interviews yourself, so you don't know, how do you know what failure look like? To which my answer would be that for me, this is failing a job interview, this is rather small fish, because I did fail quite a few businesses in my life, and I believe failing a business, you cannot really compare. It's the ultimate failure in life. And again, the moment I took learnings from those failures and I grew up and came back stronger, that's, I believe, an even better example of how to handle, how not to feel like a loser after you fail. Right? So I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.